The scene opens with a prisoner named Arlen, who has just been dumped in a prison called Bad Batch. This prison is located in the middle of a vast desert, and within it, prisoners are free to choose their own way of life, unbound by any existing laws, allowing them to do whatever they want. Arlen kept walking until she found a parked car. She approached it, but unfortunately, the car was broken down and couldn't be used. Suddenly, a car approached her. Arlen tried to run away, but she was captured by a strange person. Someone came over and injected something into her palm. When she realized it, she was already in another place and shackled. It turned out to be an anesthetic injection, so she wouldn't feel pain while her hand was being amputated. They also amputated one of her legs. The guy who took Arlen's severed hands and feet to cook them revealed that she was now at a cannibal base where they survive by consuming the flesh of other prisoners. The cannibal base was led by a man named Miami Man. At night, desperate to defecate, Arlen gathered her excrement on her body so that those who approached her would be disgusted. A woman tried to clean her, and Arlen took the opportunity to grab a crowbar and attack the woman. Her effort was effective, and Arlen quickly finished her off, while the other chained prisoners celebrated her action as it allowed them to take revenge. Arlen tried to escape the cannibal camp with one hand and one leg until she found a skateboard that helped her move faster. She managed to escape the place, although now a new problem arose. She was terribly thirsty, severely dehydrated, and so weak that she could do nothing but succumb. Shortly after, someone arrived with a cart, put Arlen on it, and took her away. They walked a long distance until they reached a place called Comfort. At the entrance, the Comfort guards took charge of Arlen and took her to be treated, while the person who had brought her left immediately. 5 months later, Arlen began to recover and feel more alive. She even got a job helping the inhabitants of the place. It turned out that the inhabitants of Comfort were also convicts like Arlen, coming from diverse situations, but they were trying to live with dignity as best they could. Meanwhile, despite his intimidating appearance, Miami Man turned out to be a loving father to his daughter. Unfortunately, he also provided food for his daughter, but the menu consisted of the flesh of new prisoners. Since he and his followers only consumed human flesh, in this base camp, new prisoners were sacrificed and their meat was consumed. The next day, Miami Man's daughter went out for a walk with one of her servants. Meanwhile, Arlen, now able to buy prosthetics and a gun just in case, went for a walk practicing her shooting and happened to see the vehicle that had taken her away before. She deduced that they were the cannibals who had devoured her hands and feet. Upon approaching, she realized it was Honey, Miami Man's daughter, and her servant. Without thinking twice, Arlen killed the servant but couldn't kill Honey because she was just a girl. Honey was not surprised by the situation, as every day she saw someone get shot. Arlen took Honey to the sanctuary. The collector, who used to help Arlen, saw her walking with a little girl. When they arrived at Comfort, Arlen bought Honey a bunny. Arlen intended to treat Honey as if she were her own daughter. However, when his daughter did not return, Miami Man went to the landfill where the servant had previously taken Honey. Miami Man only found the servant's corpse, but Honey was not there. Since Arlen had kidnapped her, he felt considerable fear, until he saw the collector. At that moment, he asked the man if he had seen his daughter, showing him a painting of Honey's face. The collector knew that Miami Man was looking for his daughter, whom he had previously seen with Arlen. But before telling him, he asked Miami Man to paint him first. Miami Man immediately agreed. After finishing painting the collector, he informed Miami Man that his daughter was in Comfort. Arlen and Honey were becoming closer and closer and spent a lot of time together. Arlen invited Honey to a night party organized by the leader of Comfort, a man who inspired his followers to live with dignity and who had created his own currency that could only be used in Comfort. The followers were so captivated by the leader's ideas that Arlen, who had only been there a short time, got carried away and ended up using drugs with the others. Arlen was so intoxicated that she got separated from Honey just as they released the rabbit. Honey kept looking for her rabbit until she met the leader and his wife, who took her to their house and seemed to be taking care of her. Arlen, still drunk, kept walking until she crossed the border without realizing it. The next day, when she realized it, Miami Man was in front of her and took off her prosthetic leg, demanding to know the whereabouts of his daughter. Arlen pretended to know nothing and said she didn't know his daughter. So, Miami Man ordered her to find his daughter in Comfort, and, if she didn't find her, he would kill her. Shortly after, a large black man approached them carrying something. It turned out that the man wanted to make an exchange with Miami Man, the gasoline he was carrying for Arlen, for that night's meal. Miami Man agreed and handed Arlen over to the man. The man was happy to take Arlen, but Miami Man was evidently lying, because after a few steps, he threw a knife at the man several times until he killed him. As he was short of food, Miami Man immediately did something tremendous with the man's body in several parts. In the end, he managed to get fresh meat, a gasoline canister, and Arlen. The two became closer because Miami Man really needed someone like Arlen. He treated her with gentleness and affection. At night, they rested while roasting the meat of the man Miami Man had killed earlier. Arlen asked him what had landed him in jail, and he explained that he had been an illegal immigrant from Cuba to the United States and had been in prison since he was 13 years old. Then, Arlen asked about the code printed on his neck, but it turned out to be just a distraction so she could grab his gun. Miami Man challenged her to plunge the knife into his body, but he was shot in the back. The individual who shot him turned out to be a prisoner from Miami Man's camp. This man immediately took the motorcycle, and Arlen ran to safety, which meant that a few days after she arrived, the prison had received approximately 1,000 more prisoners. Arlen began to question her future, as the number of people entering this fearsome prison continued to increase. She could deduce that Miami Man had become a cannibal to maintain the stability of the prison and avoid overcrowding. Arlen also decided to look for Miami Man. After walking for quite a while, she couldn't find him, only a sketchbook belonging to Miami Man, in which there was a picture of Honey, his daughter. Arlen thought that Miami Man had returned to his base. Meanwhile, the collector found Miami Man unconscious in a place far from where he had been shot earlier. The collector assisted him, treated his wound, and fed him until he recovered. After fully recovering, Miami Man thanked the collector and let him go from his base without fear of being harmed. Meanwhile, Arlen continued her search for Honey, showing her photographs and asking everyone in the hospital, but no one had seen the girl until one day Arlen saw Honey with the leader's wife of Comfort. It turned out that the couple now considered Honey as their own daughter. They treated her very well and loved her very much. As night fell, Arlen decided to enter the leader's house. It turned out that the leader had many wives and had turned them all into guards of his house. The funny thing is that all the leader's wives were pregnant. Apparently, Arlen also had the desire to marry the leader, who really hoped to marry all the beautiful women in his area. So he accepted her request immediately. The leader asked one of his wives to prepare a room for Arlen, but she was only pretending. In reality, her only goal was to take Honey, posing as the leader's wife. The leader allowed Arlen and Honey to leave the house safely after Arlen pointed a gun at one of the leader's wives as a threat to escape. Arlen ordered the leader's wife out of the vehicle as she continued her journey with Honey. Finally, they met Miami Man, who was overjoyed because he could see his only daughter again. Miami Man advised Arlen to return to Comfort so she could continue living a respectable life. Arlen replied that she would not return, as they would not allow her to return due to the situation that occurred when she kidnapped Honey. Hearing this, Miami Man decided to take Arlen to his base. Honey, who was suddenly hungry, asked for spaghetti. This was very different from when she lived with her father, who always consumed human meat. Although Miami Man could not grant her that wish, he finally took Honey's favorite rabbit and used it as food. Even though Honey cried, she still ate the rabbit meat because she was hungry. Finally, everyone lived together and happy, which marked the end of the story.